Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to another episode of What in the World is Happening, the show about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. I'm Sabina Qureshi, broadcasting live from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and with me today are Dick Larson from Los Angeles, USA. Hi, Dick.
Hi.
Nice to have you here. And John Pickles, all the way from New Zealand. Hi, John.
Hello, Sabina. Nice to be here.
Thanks. Sorry, Dick, I cut you off there. I was going too fast.
Fine. I was just saying it's really great to be doing this.
Yeah, it's wonderful. We broadcast live most second Saturdays on Zoom, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And at the end of each show, we do a 30-minute meditation called Transmission, and it's free, it's potent, and very, very effective. So we invite you to join us. It's for anybody over the age of 12. We hope you'll stick around and join us. You might really like it. Today's topic is healing ourselves with Maitreya's wisdom. And both Dick and John work with people. Dick has worked as a counselor, and John works training first responders on the telephones. And so they have a lot of experience with this. We will try to answer any questions you might have. Please feel free to ask them, put them in the chat, and John, our chat host, will translate them over to us. So we'll dive in with our very first slide here, what we want to talk about. So these are topics that we're going to cover today. And I guess, would either of you, Dick or John, like to say anything initially about these?
Well, not everybody's going to have problems in all these areas as you keep putting them up here, but one or two seem to pop up in people's lives pretty regularly. And there are ways that we can help ourselves deal with these issues according to the Ageless Wisdom teaching and the teachings of Maitreya. So we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, I concur with Dick. I think what we're doing is we're taking Maitreya's teachings and realizing that they're applicable right down into the microcosm of our own lives.
Exactly.
Very, very powerful.
Yeah, that's very useful for the nitty gritty, right?
We're going to look at the little picture rather than the big picture today. We're going to look at the personal picture for the viewers. And for others interested, we're going to take it, like you said, right down to the microcosm.
It's what we talked about initially, Dick. It's that idea of what's in it for me. You're talking these big picture ideas. What's in it for me?
Yes. How can it help me? Now, these are levels or aspects of humanity. Most major philosophies and religions agree that these four levels of human aspects exist. And of course, we're putting them on from the order of the highest to the lowest, but that's not the order they show up in humanity. They show up from the bottom up through evolution. So in ascending order of evolutionary growth, first we were an animal man. We were physical. Then we got emotions, and things really went wild. Well, now humanity is mostly focused on the emotional, it's also called astral, aspects of our lives. And the next step up for humanity is to run our lives from the mental and spiritual aspects instead of the emotional and physical aspects. We could call the physical and emotional our lower selves, and the mental and spiritual aspects of ourselves we could call our higher selves. So if we, instead of letting our feelings run our life, we want our thinking and our soul to run our life. And so we have emotions and we have physical issues, but we're going to move up so they don't run our lives anymore. They're just a nuisance that we have to put up with while we operate out of the mental and spiritual. That's the next big step for humanity.
Right, and it's our next evolutionary step, and one of the things that Maitreya's teaching gives us is some tools to help us manage and hopefully move past that attachment to number 4 and number 3, the physical and the astral. And we have the Master Dwal Cool's famous quote, and I'm not sure I'm getting it word for word, but the best service you can do for humanity is manage your astral nature. So really, as you pointed out, Dick, we are stuck in this emotional astral environment, and it is causing us all sorts of issues.
Thank you. And Sabina just put up that bottom phrase, which is very important, and that's that healing can occur in any one of these aspects. If you pray for somebody to be healed, they may not get physical healing, but they may get emotional healing or peace of mind or some grace that they wouldn't have received without your prayer. So we think, well, I prayed for them, but they're still sick. God didn't answer my prayers. Well, that's not necessary at all. They could have received all kinds of gifts because of your prayer. You just didn't see them physically.
Yeah.
So it's really important to know that healing can occur on all of these aspects, not just physically.
Now, Dick, am I correct in saying that that disease, illness, appears on the physical plane last? So it comes down from the spiritual, the mental, the causal body, and then appears in the emotional and the astral, emotional, astral, physical. That's the last place that we perceive it?
That's my understanding. Yes, I would agree.
Right.
Yeah, I think it precipitates down. The word
yes, it precipitates down like almost everything.
Yeah, great word. Yeah.
And I wanted to say that although the emotional, astral, and physical bodies can be barriers or can feel like impediments for certain awakening or awareness, I think that if these bodies are aligned with your spiritual or soul level, then you can experience great joy through that alignment as the spiritual energies flow down through all these bodies.
Absolutely. Our physicalness and our feelings are tools that we have to work with each other and to work with the world. We just don't want those tools to run our lives. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to be the operator, not the computer.
Exactly. Well said.
Right.
Okay. This is a core aspect of Maitreya's teachings.
Yeah.
You know, say and do what is true for you. Honesty of mind. In other words, you're thinking it, so say it and do it. We think one thing and then we do others or say other things. And honesty of mind, Maitreya says, humanity needs to get more transparent. We need to do more of what we're thinking.
Dick, you've talked a lot about in your work where encouraging your clients to take this first step, to start scrutinizing their own thoughts, to actually start this very intense process of personal mental honesty. But you did tell us that you've had some fabulous responses with people. What was the key phrase you came out with there? The truth?
The truth shall set you free.
Right.
You know, it's really true. If you tell the truth about a problem, the problem starts to lose its power.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. You know, everybody's had this experience. You're telling a friend or a relative something that's really important to you, and it comes out just wonderful, and they say back to you, wow, that was really great. Could you repeat that so I can write it down? And you say, I don't know what I just said. That's because you told the truth and it disappeared.
Yeah.
Honest to God, that's how it works. The truth shall set you free.
You've just made me feel so much better, Dick. I thought I had early onset dementia. So thank you very much.
I don't think that's it, John. I think you're just telling the truth a lot.
Thank you for that advice. I really appreciate it.
What's up next, Sabina?
Okay, so next we have sincerity of spirit.
Go ahead, John.
This comes from honesty of mind. This is when you are practicing this honesty, this kind of internal self-reflexivity where you are looking at your thoughts, checking them before you let them out. And this generates, in fact, I think Benjamin Creme uses the word begets. Honesty of mind begets sincerity of spirit. And that when you are communicating heart to heart in an honest way, this generates this sincerity. And you can really pick it up when you're talking with people.
Yeah, and so
It's
what we
the
have,
next
I'm just
step.
going to read out what we have written on the slide in case anyone's here who can't see it. Let your heart and your soul guide your thoughts and actions. That's what you're talking about, John, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Follow your heart.
yeah.
It will not lead you wrong. It will guide you well. And in doing so, you're following your soul too, because the heart is connected to the soul. The
Right.
Ageless Wisdom says you can picture your soul as a multi-pointed white light about 6 inches above the top of your head, connected to your mind and your heart by threads. And I just love that analogy because that has to do with meditation too, which we're going to talk about. Soul is up here, and you're taking energy down from your soul when you meditate. And so when you respond to your heart, your soul is involved. And it's just a great way to check your thoughts and your speech and your behavior, is to let your heart be your guide.
Yeah, so for me, this honesty of mind is getting the mind aligned, and then the sincerity of spirit is how you're expressing that, how you are releasing that into your relationships, your work environment, and out into the world.
Well, and it makes sense that if your mind, when you're honest, it's like as you say, you're aligning your mind with yourself, with your soul, and so then that energy of the soul can flow through all the bodies.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big one. Detachment. Observe without condemning or judging. Detachment is about observing and not getting entangled, which is a great psychological phrase. Don't get entangled in other people's issues unless you're invited to do so, because now you're mixing your karma in, their karma in with yours. You don't need anybody else's. Ours is enough to carry.
Yeah.
So observe without condemning or judging. Just accept people the way they are. They don't have to change. It's okay if they do, but they don't have to. That's detachment. Detachment means if somebody's causing you problems in your life, don't pay attention to what they say or do as much as you can. Doesn't mean you have to hate them. Doesn't mean you have to move out, but just detach emotionally and mentally, right, John?
It's the skill of not adding emotional value to whatever you see or whatever you're participating in. It's that ability to just stand there and observe without adding some sort of value, either good or bad, to whatever situation you're in. It's almost like you're standing still and allowing the world to revolve around you rather than grabbing and lunging and snapping at the world as it circulates around you. It's the ability to stand quietly and observe and just be present. And I know that term presence getting a lot of activity in New Age thinking at the moment, but there's a high degree of truth in that ability just to stand in the present and operate on what occurs to you while you're doing that. It is the secret to life. I think it's the freedom that all the ancient Eastern philosophers have talked about, that it's detachment that is actually freedom, not material wealth, but this ability to be detached from that which is going around you. My final point with detachment, and why I think it's so difficult to teach to the Western mindset, is actually from a very young age, you are trained to be attached. We train our children from a very young age to have a passion. You've got to be into something. You've got to have a passion. You know, when you talk about your child, the first thing people in New Zealand ask is, what are they into? What are they into? And so we actually have this incredible pressure on our most vulnerable members to be into something. You know, we preach passion, and I sometimes think that passion and attachment are the same idea.
I'll give you a day-to-day example of detachment. Sometimes my wife will have a bad day. I don't. I can still have a really great day. I love her dearly, and I'm sorry she's having a bad day, but I can still have a great day, or vice versa. I can be having a terrible day, and she can still have a good day. She doesn't have to come down just because I'm down. She doesn't have to worry just because I'm worried. You know what I'm saying? That's detachment. she can still have a great day anyway. That's a great example of day-to-day detachment, I think.
And it doesn't mean you don't have empathy, right?
Oh, no, empathy is important, but I don't take her feelings onto me.
Right.
I respect them and I see them, but I don't load them onto my back.
Sympathy is attachment. Empathy is detachment.
Well said, John.
Right. So when we look at detachment, it is attaining those first 2 points in that first slide. It is moving beyond or moving above that astral emotional focus and lifting your attention higher and remaining there. And when you sit there, you're becoming more and more detached. So I think detachment, Dick, is the ability to move into the mental and spiritual. I think that's the journey.
It is, for sure.
And that makes sense because it's from that level that you can observe. Because when your point of focus is in the emotional or astral level, you're just being buffeted by the waves of emotion, and you don't have any perspective. You haven't risen up high enough to see. And in a way, it's very much mirrored on the physical plane. If you think about a ship on the ocean, in order to see what's coming or what's out there, you have to go up the mast, right? The lookout point is way up, very high.
Yep. Yeah. We have a saying, and I don't know if you guys understand it, about wearing rose-tinted glasses, where you're actually looking at the world and putting on your rose-tinted glasses. So you're only trying to see the positive. I am hugely frustrated by the philosophy of positivity, because all that is doing is attaching a value to whatever you see. So you're still not seeing the truth. You're still not seeing the truth. You're seeing something, and then you are changing its perception around your emotional state. And that is a major challenge for all of us, is that we see things through our emotions, not as they are.
Sabina, would you go back to that other slide, please?
Sure.
See, if we're detached, then we can have honesty of mind. If we're detached, we don't do what other people want us to do necessarily. We do what's right for us.
Yeah.
We do what we think is best. We don't try to imitate anybody. We don't try to copy anybody because we're detached.
Yeah.
We're not attached to them.
Yeah.
And so it allows us honesty of mind and sincerity of spirit. I'll tell you, in my opinion, detachment is the key to a happy life. Honestly.
Absolutely.
Assuming you have, shelter and food and, all that. Basic needs, Matt. Detachment is the key to this whole thing. It's really, really, and Maitreya is going to teach detachment in a way that it will really soak in, that will really, really deeply own it and understand it. And that's going to change life on this planet in a huge way.
Yeah. And one of the things that, and I find detachment incredibly difficult, and it would be hugely dishonest of me to even suggest that I spend any time there. However, we've been talking about it recently in our Christchurch transmission group. And one of the things that we talked about is to start that honesty of mind. And this is a question for both of you. To start that honesty of mind, do you already need a sliver of detachment? Do you already need the ability to stand back and watch your thinking process? The idea that we came up with was you've almost got to have a bit before you can get some. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of circular process where you've got to have a little bit of detachment before you can start down this process of honesty.
I don't agree, actually. I think you can be honest even from within the maelstrom or the stormy weather of your emotions, simply by speaking the truth of what is happening for you. So I don't think you have to have some first. Of course, it might make it easier, but I think the impulse to be honest, the desire to be honest, can arise and can be there regardless of what's happening. And if you simply speak your truth, whatever it is at that moment, I think then you're on that path. You're doing that.
Yeah, you're starting that process, and I think also I agree with you, Sabina. But also when you start that process, it quickens the process.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I think once you start, it does become easier, because to start that internal honesty process, there's an awful amount of fear to overcome first.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead, Sabina.
no, I was just going to say that leads to what we're going to talk about next, which is we're going to
Well,
mention fear.
I was going to say, I think these three work hand in glove. I think they really work together, even if we don't recognize one of them. When we're practicing one of them, we're practicing the other two. And even though they may not be recognized, I think they work hand in glove, and that's why Maitreya mentions them together all the time. It's like prayer and meditation. You always hear that. You hear that a lot. Prayer, meditation, prayer, meditation. Well, they work together, which we're going to show you in a few minutes. You know, as a therapist or counselor, I got to practice detachment and honesty of mind counseling, because people would tell me their stories, and some of them were very, very sad. I mean, I would even tear up during some of their stories, but I was able to remain detached and objective enough to point out some truths to them that they weren't able to see, and to help them find their own way. So in counseling, you can't be helpful if you're not detached. You have to be detached in order to be effective. That doesn't mean all counselors are, all therapists are detached, but the really good ones are.
Yeah.
And it's a chance to really practice. It was a chance to really practice that in my life. And I found it to be very powerful. It's also a path to the intuition. When you are detached and have an honesty of mind, boy, your intuition just pops right out. It's like you intuitively know the wise thing to do or say, and to see. It's really important.
Yeah. In my work training people in the emergency services, it is the real start point for me as their trainer, where I'm trying to be as honest as I possibly can. And that gives that air of sincerity. So you do get people's attention, but I'm also wanting them to start that process of that honesty of mind, discovering why they're here, why they're involved in this work, as we've talked about previously. So I think also, Dick, when we tend to list these things, we list them in a linear fashion, but I really want to pick up on the point that you made, and actually they work together. There's a cyclic relationship.
Yeah.
You start practicing honesty of mind, you become a little bit more sincere, you start seeing detachment on the horizon, and that generates a little bit more honesty of mind, a little bit more sincerity, and round it goes. I don't think it's a linear experience. I think they are tightly intertwined, and they work together to enhance each other.
I would agree.
Right. So next we want to mention fear, because it's an element that people deal with. Most of us at some moment or another experience it. And one of Maitreya's teachings is that fear and trust are opposites. And he actually says in one of his messages, where fear stands, trust may not. So they're literally like oil and water, although of course you can make an emulsion with oil and water, but they're mutually inhibiting. So when trust is present, fear is absent. And that's extremely important because, well, not just in our personal lives, but if you look at, for example, a crisis like a war, for example, or any type of conflict with groups of people, when mediation works, it's because there's an ability to establish trust, even a degree of trust, because until you have that, nothing can move forward.
I think the other thing too, that when I think of fear and two groups trying to communicate, or two individuals trying to communicate, no one can give you trust. I think you have to drop your fear. I think that's the start, that as the individual, you have to let go of your fear. And until you do that, trust can't get in.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a
commitment.
I think trust is part of the solution to fear. I think if in your fear you can recognize that you trust the universe to support you, that or whatever, I think that in your fear it helps you walk through the fear. Trust can. Now they can also happen the way you said, John, where they offset where they are a problem for each other.
So, Dick, if we are looking at our fears, and I'm kind of referencing your work here, if we are looking at our fear, does there need to be a degree of detachment to start addressing it? Do we have to start being honest and sincere and detached, and then we start to get a handle on our fear?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, if you tell the truth about being afraid, the fear is going to diminish.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going to happen, you know. If you keep it inside, it can build and build and build and build.
Yeah.
Well, and yet fear is a reaction, isn't it? So in a sense, it's really just an astral or emotional energy. And there may be good cause to be afraid. I'm not saying that there isn't. I mean, at times you should be afraid, but then you should use that fear, if it's that type of a situation, to act, to take action. And people know that as soon as you begin to act, the fear diminishes, because a lot of what fear is about is passivity or helplessness. And
that's right.
Is like an antidote to that.
Yeah, fear stops us from doing what we think is wise. And that's the problem with fear. It can stop us from taking wise action. Yeah, I would agree. Okay.
All right. And so let's go on. Prayer and meditation, right?
Yeah, we said we were going to talk about these. We'll define prayer very basically here and meditation very basically.
Whoops. Let me go back there. Right.
Prayer is communicating with the spiritual universe, whatever you think the spiritual universe is. And if you don't think there is one, you can try it anyway and see what happens. That's what I always told my patients, just try it. You may not believe in God or anything else, but just try praying and see what happens. I'm telling you, the most amazing results. People would come back 3 days later and say, no, you told me to pray and see what happened. Listen to what happened. I said, whoa, maybe there's something out there that is spiritual,
Yeah.
Asking for guidance. You can pray to ask for guidance. You can pray to ask for help. And you can certainly pray to ask for help for others. Very important.
Yeah.
And a lot of people forget this part. Prayer is also an opportunity to express our gratitude and thanks for the blessings we and so many others on this planet have received and continue to receive moment to moment every day.
Yeah. I like to add that it's actually your right to ask for help. You are allowed to ask for help. The system on this planet is set up so that to ask for help is part of that process, because that enables energy to come your way. I think this is important for people to understand, that it is your right to ask for help. It is your right to ask for personal growth. And I think one of the things that makes me so comfortable with the Maitreya story is that Benjamin Creme, for me, enunciates this so well, that we are part of this process. We're not external from it. And as divine beings moving towards self-realization, it is our duty almost to ask for help so that we can contribute to the greater good of the planetary plan. I think it's really
in doing so, we are invoking the masters, the spiritual universe, God, whatever you want to call it. We are invoking spiritual help into our lives. Yeah. And by invoking, I mean we are doing something that the spiritual universe has promised to respond to.
Right.
Well,
and so we're inviting them to participate in our lives, the spiritual universe.
Yeah.
And there's also the question of free will, in the sense that the spiritual universe, God, the masters of wisdom, great beings, they may want to help us, but until we are open to it, they can't give it to us. I mean, they can't push past our barriers. That's something we have to do.
Right.
Yeah, I think sometimes the masters of wisdom are just sitting there hoping somebody will finally ask for help. We'll finally invite them into their lives.
Yes.
Which is what it really is.
Absolutely. And I think Sabina, you put it so beautifully. And Dick, you're right. They're all waiting. Come on, Pickles, put your hand up. Come on, we can help. Put your hand up.
Well, and I'd like to just mention, who are these masters of wisdom that we're talking about, because we haven't actually said anything about them. So in this worldview, what we're talking about is, we keep talking about evolution and growth, personal growth. And I think pretty much everybody would agree that that's a process we're all in day to day, growing, learning. It's just part of the fabric of life. And so when we were talking about the different levels of a human being, we were talking about the spiritual, mental, the emotional or astral, and the physical. As we continue to grow and evolve through moving into these higher levels in terms of where our seat of awareness is, we go through changes. We actually do change, and we do become wiser over time. And in this belief system, we talk about reincarnation, which in a way is the only logical answer for the fact that, or to my mind, that human beings are such amazing, astounding creations. We are so amazingly built and constructed, and the things we can do, the things we do. I'm not saying plants or animals aren't also equally amazing, but if a human being is to live only one lifetime, that to me would seem a great waste of this amazing creation. So for me, reincarnation makes sense intuitively, and it is part of the teaching that we share about the Masters of Wisdom and Maitreya. And so the idea of reincarnation allows us to imagine that we keep growing lifetime after lifetime. And according to this teaching, we do live hundreds of thousands of lifetimes. So really a great span of time. And as we continue to grow and evolve, at a certain point, we reach mastery over ourselves. And at that point, we will not have fear anymore. It simply won't exist anymore, because our attention won't be on that level. So it won't be possible for us to have fear. And the people who reach that level, we call them masters of wisdom, because from our standpoint, they're perfected men and women, and they have mastery over themselves. So we use the word master in that sense, not in the sense that they are a master telling somebody else what to do. So I hope that's a bit of an explanation. Yeah.
They're senior members of the spiritual kingdom, and they work with humanity, several of them.
Yeah, I think my final point on prayer is that we're not alone, that we are part of a divine life. And ask for help. Ask for help. You'll be surprised. And as you said earlier, Dick, careful what you wish for.
What?
I don't think Maitreya does lottery numbers.
Right.
What was it that John, you were referring to that Dick said?
When Dick talked earlier, when we were putting the meeting together, about careful what you wish for when you are asking for help. And I find when I talk to people about asking for help that you're better off with a more open-ended question, because you don't know how it's going to manifest. So rather than asking for 2 more inches in height so that you can play in the NBA, you might want to just ask for help.
Yeah.
Okay,
and let the master decide.
Right, that makes sense. So how is meditation different from prayer?
Okay. Well, we said prayer is communicating with the spiritual universe. Meditation completes the cycle, because it's allowing the spiritual universe to communicate with you in the form of that soul I mentioned, 6 inches above the top of your head. So prayer is like uploading to the spiritual universe, and meditation is like downloading energy from the spiritual universe to let it work through you. And yeah, meditation, you can receive inspiration through meditation. You can receive guidance through meditation. You can receive healing by being open in meditation to the spiritual universe. No guarantee all these are going to happen. And it's not really the sole purpose of meditation to receive guidance or inspiration or healing. The purpose of meditation is to make contact with your soul. Yeah. Because that's where the good stuff starts to happen. That's when you start downloading, you start receiving that spiritual energy into yourself to use in your daily life. But these can be side effects or results of meditation, and often are. People will receive inspiration and guidance and healing. I know I've received some inspiration and some guidance and some healing from meditating. And see the two, prayer and meditation, the complete cycle of communication with the spiritual universe.
Yeah.
And that's why they're always said together, prayer and meditation, prayer and meditation. Now, you don't have to meditate. Some people just can't. It isn't right for some people, but you won't know unless you try. So I suggest you try it, see what happens.
Yeah.
Right.
I love Benjamin Krem's quote, meditation and service are the royal road to enlightenment. And I also love one of the things that Benjamin Krem said many, many years ago. It was in a book, but I'm sure he said it directly to me. And I think it was the Transmission Meditation book. He said that throughout your many thousands of incarnations, the soul will start to show interest in the vehicle. And then it will introduce the idea of meditation to the vehicle, so to the individual in incarnation. And over several lifetimes, you'll brush up against meditation, and then you'll take it seriously, and then you'll grasp meditation. And then that evolutionary process really kicks up. And so to everybody out there, if you've had an experience of meditation, if you've come into contact with meditation, it is your soul's purpose. Your soul is communicating with you. Take the offered meditation. Take it to your life. Bring it into your life.
And
you don't have to meditate for hours.
No.
Go ahead, Sabina.
I was just going to say it's very simple to do. And even just 15 minutes a day will make a huge difference. Make sure you sit with your back straight and focus at the Ajna center between your eyebrows. Now, this is one of the chakras, one of the energy centers in your body. And it's the point right between your eyebrows, literally exactly in the middle, right at the top of your nose. And if you're not sure how it feels, you can just put your finger there and touch that spot and then remember what that feels like. And when your attention wanders, which it will, then you think, don't say, but think Om, the mantra Om, to bring your attention back to that spot. And the other thing is to just let it happen. Avoid expectations. That's a form of detachment again. Don't worry about what you think it should feel like or what should happen. There isn't really a should here.
Yeah, don't grip it. Don't grab it. Just sit comfortably with your attention on the Ajna center. And that Om, is so magic the way it brings your attention back to that Ajna center. We are hardwired for this. I love that idea that when you sound the Om, your attention automatically goes to that Ajna center. We're built to do this. For me, that is such a powerful concept.
Yes, it is. You sit with your back straight so your chakras are aligned. There are 7 major chakras in the human body, and they run from the crown chakra at the top of your head down your spine to the base of the spine. You focus at the Ajna center between your eyebrows. Now, it's not up in the middle of your forehead. It's between your eyebrows, like Sabina said. And the reason you focus there is because these chakras are always having energy flowing through them all the time. And that's what maintains their stasis, their ability to serve us. There's a major gland located by each of these major chakras, and the chakra is responsible for the health of that gland. But the Ajna center is the traffic cop. The Ajna center sends the energy to whichever chakra is needed at the moment, depending on what that particular energy is, because we don't always know that either. There's many energies. So the Ajna center is the safe place to focus because it will direct the energy to the other chakras as needed. And thinking Om, when we say Om, we're talking about this sound. Om. Letting the O vibrate and the M vibrate. Om. The O activates the throat chakra and the Ajna center, and the M, let's see now, no. The Om activates the heart chakra and the throat chakra. You want to focus from the heart chakra up. And then the M puts the focus on the Ajna center and the crown chakra at the top of the head. So when you think Om, if you go Om, when you do that, you'll feel your head buzz. That's because the vibrations are setting up in your head center. And you don't meditate on Om. You don't go Om, 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 and you don't say it out loud. That's a very low vibration. You think it. That's a very high vibration. And you only think it to start the meditation and when your attention drops. You'll know your attention has dropped to your solar plexus because your head will be down, you'll be looking at the floor, or your eyes will be looking at the floor. You'll just know. And so then you just think Om a couple of times, and like John said, it will bring the attention right back up to your Ajna center so you can continue to meditate. Here's the thing. Our mind is like a monkey mind. It just operates all the time. It thinks. Our brain thinks all the time, and we can get caught up in those thoughts while we're meditating. Oh, I need to do the laundry tomorrow, and whatever it is. When you think Om, it raises your consciousness above the mind. It's like a movie that's showing, but you're not watching it. And it allows you to stay focused above the thinking brain. And so that's the beauty of Om. You don't meditate on it, like I said, you just think it when your attention drops.
And I want to mention, since you were talking about what Om does when you say it, or chant it, that some people like to do a little bit of chanting using their voice before they begin meditating, because, as you were saying, it aligns the chakras. And so that is also an effective thing to do, is to have maybe a short session of chanting Om, for example, before you begin to sit and meditate. And of course, once you begin to meditate, then you use Om mentally only, not with your voice.
But absolutely. I was just making the point that the chanting isn't part of this particular meditation. By the way, this is a very generic meditation. You can use this if you have no spiritual program at all. This could be the start of it. And if you do have a spiritual or religious program, this will just enhance it. It's very generic. You do it once a day. I tried doing it twice a day, but at night I fall asleep. So I do it in the morning. I get up in the morning, I say my prayers, I do my meditation, then I start my day. Yeah. So you just get up 15 minutes earlier is all you have to do. And that allows you time to do your little meditation every day and start contacting your soul on a regular basis. Life will change. Life will improve. It's amazing. Other people will notice it before you do, because it's very subtle changes. But they'll say, something different about you. I don't know what it is, but I like it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. The other thing that you're doing, of course, so when most of us run most of the time on emotional energy, and that's a finite energy source. And so when you run out of that emotional energy, we call it burnout, we call it fatigue, and it takes a period of time for that emotional energy, that astral energy reservoir, to build up in your body. And so during that process, you're completely flat. When you start this meditation using the Ajna center and thinking Om, you're accessing another energy source. You're accessing the energy of your soul. And so you start gradually to avoid these emotional slumps, these emotional burnouts, because you're filling the tank from another higher source. It's very important to remember that meditation is accessing another source of energy.
And guys, excuse me for interrupting, but I think we need to go through these slides a little more quickly or we're going to run out of time.
Yeah, I'm having too much fun, Dick. I'm just having way too much fun.
I was going to say, we're going to do transmission meditation for half an hour at the end of this program. And the plan is to get to that point in about 10 or 12 minutes. But so we'll just run through these. We were talking about the different types of issues that can be solved by practicing Maitreya's teaching of honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment. And we just have some slides here about each of those areas with little bullet points describing some of the essentials that you, Dick, and John have found in your work when you work with people. So, for example, relationship issues, communication is essential. Again, honesty and sincerity, the willingness to apologize. And that's part of honesty. That's the willingness or ability to see what one has done, what you've done, or said or thought that caused harm, and forgiveness and harmlessness. Harmlessness meaning that you attempt not to cause harm. It's very hard not to cause harm because very often we do it without realizing it. Maybe later we realize it, then we can apologize. And forgiveness is the other side of that. If somebody else has caused you harm, forgiveness means being willing not to hold on to that with a feeling of resentment about it. And again, detachment plays a huge role in this.
Almost every dysfunctional relationship that I've dealt with in counseling was, if not caused by, certainly exacerbated by a lack of honest communication. I mean, it's just, you got to talk to each other. You got to tell each other the truth and then work from there. Yes, it may be uncomfortable. That's okay. The truth shall set you free. And it really, really does. It really works. Willingness to apologize. If you see that you did something wrong, people say, well, I don't have to apologize because it wasn't all my fault. That's not what we're saying. We're saying apologize for your part of it. Honey, I'm sorry I yelled at you, or whatever it is. Then the other person, and you got to talk about this, but the other person then, if it's a partnership, agrees ahead of time that if you apologize and they think it's sincere, that they will accept your apology. And so they say, apology accepted, or I accept your apology. Okay, now the fight is over. The argument is over. You're both talking to each other in a calm way. You may not be able to forgive them for a few days. Forgiveness can be a process, but you can accept the apology. That's really, really important. And it adds a lot to the harmlessness of that relationship. Just imagine the world if nobody hurt each other. Well, it'd be a different world, wouldn't it? Harmlessness is huge. And now, like Sabina said, we can't just do it, but we can work towards harmlessness. Be more and more harmless. But the willingness to apologize, the willingness to tell the truth, the willingness to forgive, and to accept apologies are huge in making relationships work. And of course, detachment. You got to detach from some of the things that people you love do, or they'll make you crazy. So you just detach from it. You don't invest your feelings into it or your emotions. You don't waste time worrying about it or thinking about it. You don't obsess on it.
All right. And so then we go to social pressure, or what we would call expectations, what we think we have to do because other people think it's important or they think we should be doing it. And here, really, the sum of the advice is detachment, and to just give yourself that space to stand back and say, I'm not a puppet of others. I don't have to do anything in particular because of what anyone else thinks or expects. I have the freedom to make my own choice.
The detachment, I think social pressure is attachment and detachment. When you're starting to practice detachment, you become less and less aware of what we call social pressure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we also talked about commercialization and the social pressure that brings, that actually it's a tool of commercialization to make us care about this stuff, because we then participate in that commercial environment to make us feel better. Detachment gives you freedom from that.
Exactly.
and grief and loss. Grief is a natural response to loss. And the advice here from both of you, I believe, is to work through that grief without obsessing on it. That is, to not become attached to it. Again, detachment is a really essential key, and to detach from self-pity.
That identification with our emotions and identification with our thoughts. We are neither our emotions or our thoughts. You don't have to believe what you feel. You don't have to believe what you think. They are choices. And so detaching from self-pity is that we call it woe is me. You know, people are suffering from the woe is me phenomenon.
Yes.
And you've just got to get over that. You've got to move on from that.
It's a natural tendency to be what am I trying to say?
Self-absorbed.
Self-absorbed, yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. It's a natural tendency to be self-absorbed, and learning and growing and evolving is part of working our way out of that. And we can do that with exercises like detachment and teaching ourselves not to obsess on things. Grief is a natural response, but it doesn't have to last years as it has for some people. It doesn't even have to last months. If you can accept it and detach from it and stop feeling sorry for yourself, if you do, not everybody does, but if you do, then you can move on, and you've moved through the grief and loss aspect of emotional life. You know, speaking of grief and loss and how powerful it is, I've known people who were so attached to their career that when they retired, they died within a year or two, just because they felt like they had no purpose in life anymore.
Yeah.
That was attachment to their job.
Yeah.
They thought they were their job. Maitreya comes to remind us who we are, that we're living souls. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
It's
And
big
that's the
stuff.
start. That to me is the start of that honesty, that process of who am I? Who am I? Who am I?
Yes.
And that starts that internal investigation, which leads to that honesty, which starts our process.
You know, a lot of people lost their jobs in this pandemic, and they're finding out they're not their jobs.
Yeah.
A lot of people are learning during this pandemic that they can be just fine without a job for a while.
Yeah.
They don't need it as their identification.
Yeah.
And that's a real gift to humanity, if you ask me.
Yeah.
That people are given the opportunity to step back from their job and stop identifying with it so closely and start being themselves more and more. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much about this slide. But
well, I was just going to say, I think that's true for those who have an economic cushion. If losing your job is a crisis for your life, then it's a different question, of course.
Right. It's not about being your job, though. It's about being a suffering human being. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
Our next is fear. And here, the most potent advice is to be in the moment, be present in the moment. I believe John, the chat show host, has put a link in the chat to a talk that Benjamin Creme gave about the overcoming of fear. And a lot of what that is about is this, being in the moment. And you, Dick and John, you had some extra points here. Don't let fear stop you. Do what's wise anyway. And use your courage in spite of the fear. So you may be experiencing fear, but don't let it paralyze you. Take action.
Yeah. I'll give you an example of that. A fireman knows there's a person in a building that's fully involved, and they're scared to go in, but they go in anyway. They don't let the fear stop them. How do they do that? They discover their courage, and they apply their courage to the task ahead. So here's the yin and yang of life. You can't use courage unless you're afraid. So the only time you can demonstrate that innate quality that we all have of courage is when you're afraid. So that's the tool. Go ahead and use it. Don't let fear stop you.
Yeah. There's a book written many years ago by, I think, Jerry Jampolsky, and the title was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
There.
And I think that is such brilliant advice. Dick, I want to pick up on courage. If courage and fear are related, and the Course in Miracles tells us that fear and love are opposites, when you're expressing courage, are you expressing love for others? That ability to run towards that which harms others, is that an expression of love, I wonder?
It can be. I think it's also an expression of trust, that you move through the fear because you trust yourself to be able to handle it, or you trust the universe to support you in handling it. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm thinking in that context in warfare where men express courage, and it's almost like they decentralize. They stop being fearful for themselves and express some protective emotion for others. And I wonder if that's that love and fear relationship, love and trust.
Beautiful.
so. I think so, John. I think that's really well said. Yeah. And so then we go to guilt and shame, because these are things people suffer with as well. And I believe, Dick, this was something that you said, guilt equals I did something bad.
I've dealt with this a lot in my counseling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to notice the difference. Guilt is I did something bad, and shame is I am bad. You hear the difference? One is really deep and one is surface.
Yeah.
Guilt is I did something bad. So what you do there is you apologize, you let go of your regrets, you forgive yourself, and you detach from it. It's something you did. You can apologize for it. Shame, I am bad. That's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a lie. That's telling yourself a lie. Remember who you are. You are a living soul. You are divine. We can't show it all the time because those other aspects come in, but we are, and we can let it leak out a lot if we want to. And just remember who you are. The Maitreya comes to remind us who we are. And you are not bad. That is, you're telling yourself a falsehood. You are not bad. And so you let go of it by remembering who you are.
Dick, when you came up with this, it's absolutely rocked my training world. As you know, I work for the police and I'm training people into their emergency communication centers. A big part of what we're dealing with is what we call family harm. So the destruction that's going on with the family unit, and it's a global issue. Many of our victims in that family harm environment feel shame, and therefore don't communicate with emergency services and don't ask for help because of shame. And you have just nailed that for me. And I'll be taking this concept back into the classroom on Monday. It's that idea that shame, I am bad. Once my people can understand that, we can work with victims over the phone. It's brilliant, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Right. I think it's really important. We can work our way out of both of these. If we're aware of it, and if we, guilt, you apologize. Even if somebody has passed away, you can still apologize to them. You can write them a letter of apology and then burn it, and or you can bury it, or you can just go to their grave and apologize, or you can just apologize through prayer to them, and that will remove the guilt because you're telling the truth about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so next is self-doubt. And as you can see, these are very connected to each other. And what you were just saying about shame, the antidote, remembering who you are, that you're a divine being, a spiritual being. Again, with self-doubt, if you turn to your higher self through prayer and meditation, this will help you come out of that self-doubt. And you also talked about serving others, taking the focus off yourself. And that sort of ties in with what you were saying, John, about fear, overcoming fear. Again, the focus on others is a real asset. It really helps you to rise up, basically.
Mm.
And go ahead, Dick.
Well, I just want to touch on a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
Serving others, that is selfless. That takes that self-obsession away from us. So we don't think about ourselves so much. It has a huge impact on self-doubt. And I've had so many people say, I don't do any service because I don't know what it is God wants me exactly to do. What kind of service does God want me to do? And so we asked that of Benjamin Creme, and Benjamin Creme said, forget it. Just find one thing. There's a million ways to serve. There are people that have all kinds of needs in the world and in your community. Just find one that appeals to you, that touches your heart, and go do it. Service can involve donating money. Money is a spiritual tool if it's used properly. Mm-hmm. You can serve by spending your time. And anything, you can serve by picking up a piece of trash on the ground as you walk by and dropping it in a trash can. That's serving nature and serving the world. So find a way to serve, one or more ways to serve, and it will help your self-doubt. You will start to see your value into the world by serving others. It's a powerful, powerful tool.
Yeah. Dick, there's been some research and some work being done around mental health patients and encouraging them to volunteer, encouraging them to serve in some way. And that's that decentralization again. That's taking your attention off the ego and off yourself and letting it out, sharing it. So yeah, there's been some interesting research around the benefits of getting mental health patients into some form of service.
And here's one of the really important things about service. You don't do it to get rid of your self-doubt. You don't do it to make yourself look good. You serve because there's a need.
Yeah.
You see the need and you want to help. Otherwise, it's not service.
Yeah.
It's self-aggrandizement. It's got to be service. You see the need and you want to do it. That's how you serve.
Absolutely.
Takes you out of yourself.
And stress and anxiety, something that most of us deal with to some degree or another. And so these are some of the guidelines that you two came up with to set priorities, avoid entanglement in others' problems, which is basically detachment. And again, and remember who you are. And you can see really that it's very circular. I mean, the antidotes are very similar in each of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember who you are. No, go ahead.
I love I think, Dick, the way I love the way you've introduced honesty is that initial step, that freedom almost, and that enables that honesty, sincerity, and detachment to kick off, and it's permeating its way through all of these issues. That honesty is the start point. Remember who you are. Prayer and meditation. It's a really powerful concept.
Yeah, if you have many things impinging on your emotional and mental well-being, get out a laptop or get out a pencil and piece of paper and start writing down what they are and then number them in order of priority. Which ones are most important to you and to others? What's next? What's next? And you're going to find that there are some you just can't do. You don't have time. You don't have the energy. But you handle the top 2 or 3 in order, and then you'll find that the stress and anxiety will disappear. Maybe one of them is you have a terrible manager at work, and that manager is on you all the time. Well, there's a couple options. Number 1, detach and put up with it, or number 2, change jobs. And there's a lot of companies looking for workers right now, so it'll be easier now than it ever was. Yeah. But I mean, those are examples of things. We need to be proactive about our stress and our anxiety and not fall into the victim role. Remember who you are. You are a powerful soul. Prayer and meditation will help remind you of that. And then detach from your emotional reactions and look at it very objectively. Like I said, put them down on paper or in a laptop and put them down and take a look at them and see which can I do without, which can I just let go of, as John would say.
Right. And then we go to finding meaning and purpose in life. Questions about spirituality. I skipped this one. So how do you want to describe this? I'll read out what we've got down here. Be open-minded, be discriminating, use what works for you. It might not be the same as what works for somebody else. Don't judge yourself or your choices. Be who you are. Don't compare yourself with others. Try prayer and meditation, and practice honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment.
Yeah, I think the one for me that stands out is be who you are. And we've talked about the culture of imitation, the culture of trying to be someone else, trying to be the musician, trying to be the actor, trying to be the social media influencer, trying to look like someone else. But really, it's be who you are. Make that journey, make that discovery, start that process. And that'll start you on the way. That'll start you on the way. And Maitreya talks a lot about being who you are.
That's true, he does. And one of his descriptions of detachment that I really like, he said, when you're detached, it's like you're sitting at the beach, looking at the ocean, and at that moment, you're not thinking about your bank account. You're not worrying.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, be open-minded. I mean, the Ageless Wisdom says there are many paths to God. There are many spiritual paths, and we all carve our own path. Don't go looking for a path. Carve your own. We all carve our own path of spirituality, and it's about learning and growing and in our consciousness, conscious awareness. So be open-minded to the possibilities for spirituality, the methods, the paths. Be discriminating, though. Be fussy. You have a right to be fussy about which spiritual practices you decide to adopt for yourself, or religious. Either way, they're both. Use what works for you. Try it and see if it works. If it doesn't work, try something else. That's what I did with my career. I had all these ideas about things I wanted to do, so I tried them, and I found the one that worked for me, and it was counseling. Don't judge yourself or your choices. Once you've decided this works for me, and I want to do this, then don't judge yourself or let others convince you that it's wrong. Be who you are. Don't compare yourself. And of course, prayer and meditation, always a wonderful way for a spiritual path. If you don't believe in God, it's okay. Try him anyway. You don't have to. You don't have to believe in anything to pray. You don't have to believe in anything to meditate. You just do it and it works. I love that.
And then we had some points about finding meaning and purpose in life. According to the Ageless Wisdom, our purposes are to learn and grow mentally and spiritually, to serve others, and to spiritualize ourselves at all levels. And what that really means is simply that as we move through the process of growing and learning and understanding more and more, our bodies change, the energy in ourselves changes. And so gradually, lifetime after lifetime, we actually become lighter. The atoms in our bodies, the physical atoms, are replaced gradually with subatomic particles, with light. And so a master of wisdom, someone who has completed that journey on Earth, although his or her journey continues, it's a never-ending process, but they live in bodies. Their physical bodies are no longer made of physical matter, the type of physical matter that we're made of. They were once like that because all of them come out of the human family, and all of us are on our way to that same point. But they have bodies of light, literally. So that's what we mean by spiritualize ourselves. We're all in that process. And whether we're aware of it or not, whether we think it's important or not, it is taking place. It's built into us. It's how we're built, according to this teaching, according to the Ageless Wisdom teaching.
Yeah. I am finding meaning and purpose in life. I think this is one of those places where you've got to ask for help. We talked about prayer, we talked about asking for help, and this is, I think, where you reach out, you ask sincerely for help to find your meaning or to find your purpose, and then you wait, and it will come. And also, Dick, I want to pick up on what you said. When you're trying to find meaning and purpose in life, you'll go down a few dead alleys. Just come back out and start again. You won't always get it right to start with. And when I look back, when I started my spiritual inquiry, if you like, some of the stuff I was reading back then, I wouldn't read now. Some of the things I got into when I first started, I wouldn't get into now, and I'm not interested now. But just start. Ask, sincerely ask for help and guidance, and then start.
One thing that's not on here that I wish we would have added is to practice right relationship. Right relationship is where harmlessness enters in, and treating others like you would like to be treated. You can't go wrong with
do unto others.
The golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do. I mean, it sums up all of the teachings in one almost. Yeah. And so right relationship is very important. Maitreya comes to help us establish right relationship with each other. And that means caring about each other, taking care of each other, and treating each other right, kindly, harmlessly, wisely. And in relationships, in personal relationships, you have a right to be fussy about who you hang out with. If if your parents don't treat you well, don't hang out with them any more than you have to.
Yeah.
You know, if your brother or sister doesn't treat you right, there's things deeper than blood. People say, oh, blood is the, no, there's self-care. You need to take care of yourself. You have a right to take care of yourself. And you just detach from those folks physically and mentally and emotionally as much as you can. Be fussy, be discriminating, as we said earlier, about who you hang out with, who you spend time with. Be sure it's with people that nurture you and allow you to nurture them. Yes.
Yeah. Dick, that was a powerful epiphany for me in my life when I suddenly made that decision. Blood is not the only relationship, and sometimes your family is not the best place for you to be, and so you've got to manage that. And that lesson for me was an epiphany and a turning point. I wish I'd known you back then, Dick. I could have got into this stuff so much earlier. The pain and suffering I could have saved myself.
That's mutual, John. Oh, now the laws. Oh boy.
Well, the law of rebirth, just we touched on it briefly earlier about reincarnation,
right?
And the fact that one lifetime is a very short period of time for a human being. Yeah. And so here we have, just repeating that we live hundreds of thousands of lifetimes, and each life is an opportunity to learn and grow. And the goal is to become a perfected human being. Perfected meaning that we no longer cause harm to any others, and that we have mastery over ourselves. And it's a slow, gradual process, and it takes time. And nevertheless, the Ageless Wisdom teaching says that we will all achieve that within our own time frame. That is, again, not to compare ourselves with each other, just to carry on in our own path, our own time frame, and that we have the help and support of great beings. Now, we've mentioned the Masters of Wisdom a couple of times in Maitreya. So now I'd just like to move to this next point. Who are they? So we've talked about the Masters of Wisdom. They are perfected men and women. We talk about them in terms of a spiritual hierarchy. Hierarchy because there are different degrees of perfection that they have. They work together as a group, but they do also work as a hierarchy. They're also called sometimes the Lords of Compassion. They are perfected from our point of view, though their evolutionary journey continues, and it's an endless journey. There is no end point at which one stops evolving. So they've completed that journey here on Earth. They don't need to reincarnate any further on Earth. And right now, they're emerging from their retreats. They've been living in places like the Himalayas, the high mountains, the Andes, and the desert areas, places far removed from our centers of life, our cities and towns, until now. And now they're coming forward to live among us once again for the first time in a very, very long time, to work with us, to help us, to guide us. Again, they won't impose anything on us because they respect our free will, but they're here to help us because we're facing a great crisis. Our civilizations are basically collapsing. We are, well, we all know this, we're all experiencing it, that there are crises on every front. In every place where you look, we see breakdown, we see an inability of our systems to cope and to find solutions. And so that's a great part of why they're here now.
They have learned all the lessons that planet Earth can teach, and they don't need to come back in physical bodies to learn anymore. They are perfected men and women, but like human beings, we're all on different levels of growth and consciousness. So are the masters. There's different levels of consciousness in the spiritual kingdom, and that's why it's called a hierarchy, spiritual hierarchy. And they are here now. I mean, this is happening now. There are 14 masters on planet Earth right now in physical bodies, waiting for the world teacher to come forward first, and then they will all be introduced to us. They all come as teachers and guides. Like Sabina said, they're never going to ever force us to do anything because our free will is sacred, and they know that, and they treat it that way. But they're here now. This is going to happen very, very soon, that they're going to be walking amongst us, giving suggestions in every aspect of life, finance, education, healthcare, government, you name it. They're going to give us guidance, and then we have free will. We can choose to follow their suggestion or not.
We have a question from Marcia, who asks, do we know who those teachers are? And specifically, Benjamin Krem has told us that, for example, the Master Jesus is living in Rome, and one of his tasks will be to reform the Catholic Church, to basically free it or change it from the corruption that it now has. And I think also, I don't remember, are there other masters that we know specifically which masters they are in any of the centers?
Not of the 14, not of the 14 except for Maitreya, but we know of people who have become masters, people like Buddha, Confucius, Joan of Arc is one of the great masters now. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is one of the great masters. Jesus is one of the great. These great beings,
Muhammad
some
also.
of the great.
Muhammad,
I'm sorry.
The Prophet Muhammad also.
Oh yeah, all the heads of the major religions are now great masters, senior members of the spiritual kingdom, and some of the great musicians, some of the great artists of the past are now masters. So yes, we know many of them, and we'll recognize a lot of names. Some of the Jesus disciples are great masters now. John and Paul and so on. Peter are great masters. So yes, they are human beings in all aspects of life that have become perfected. There are 63 of them
in total who work with human with the Earth evolution.
There'll be more than 40 of them walking amongst us before the next 2,000 years are over, guiding and teaching, making suggestions.
And so now we want to tell you just briefly who is Maitreya, because we've talked about him. He is one of the masters of wisdom. We also call him the world teacher in the sense that he's here as a teacher for all of us. He is not here to found a religion. He says, if you're happy in your chosen practice or religion, continue in that. He's not here to compete with that. He's here simply as a teacher for the next age, the next 2,250 years. He's the head of the spiritual hierarchy. So he's kind of like the person who coordinates what the whole group does. He embodies unconditional love, and he's here for everybody, whether you have a religion or not. And regardless of what your religion might be, he's here for all of us. He is also expected by all the world's major religions. That is, in every holy book, there is a prediction about a future great being who will come. Each religion gives him a different name when they describe this prediction. For example, Christians are waiting for Christ to come again. Jews are waiting for the Messiah. Muslims are waiting for the Imam Mahdi. Hindus are waiting for Krishna. So all of these names, according to the Ageless Wisdom, refer to the same person whose personal name is Maitreya. And he's here for everybody, regardless of what your practice is or your tradition. But he's not here to force himself on anybody. Again, the respect of free will is absolutely essential for the masters of wisdom, because they understand how the law works. Forcing never works. So
we have worldwide communication now. So one teacher can fulfill the prophecy of all of those major religions by him or herself. And Maitreya, of course, comes to do that because he along with the Buddha are the two super senior members of the spiritual kingdom. And he comes, like Sabina said, as a teacher, and he'll be here for a long time in a human body, walking amongst us. He's indestructible. He can't be killed. He doesn't need to eat or sleep. He made his own body. And the masters travel by thought. And so he can appear in 42 places at once if he wants to. And he can split out his consciousness like that. It's so huge. I mean, I can't even imagine. He's aware of every single person on the planet at every single moment. There's a story about a little boy, a Palestinian boy, who was throwing rocks at an Israeli soldier, and the soldier had finally had enough, and he raised his rifle to shoot the boy. Boom! Maitreya appeared right in front of the little boy out of thin air, and the bullet fell to the ground harmlessly. The soldier threw his rifle down and ran. He's aware of every single person, every single moment. What an awesome being, full of love, God's love.
So Dick, that story then will raise the question, well, if he can do that, why isn't he preventing wars? Why isn't he stopping people from dying? And the answer to that is karma. Everybody has karma that they bring with them into every life. And this karma is like a balance of everything we've ever done, thought, or said through all our lifetimes. And so the masters of wisdom can and do step in to save people when karma permits, when that person's karma permits it. And that's part of their practice of not infringing our free will. Because if they were to overstep those limits of karma, they would be interfering in our natural evolution. Now, for them, death is not an end the way that most of us or many of us think of it. They see us as the divine being, the spiritual being that we are, and they know that in the moment of dying or leaving this earthly life, our spiritual being simply is stepping out of the physical body in the same way that we step out of our clothes at night before we go to bed to sleep, most of us, that is. So when we physically exit our physical lives, we simply leave behind the physical body, but as the being that we are, the spiritual being, we continue to live, and sooner or later we return in another physical body. We're born again as a baby to a woman, and hopefully into a good family. So they don't see physical death as a tragedy in the same way that we do. They understand it as a transition in the same way that birth is a transition from existing without a physical body into incarnating in a physical body. But the answer to why they can't prevent so many things happening that we see as terrible is simply karma. They can't overstep.
Well, it's more than that, I think. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I think it's more than that, because we have to change the world. The masters can't change the world. We have to do the work. They will inspire us, right, Sabina, and teach us, but we have to do the work. And so that's where the karma enters in, I think. Great example of that. Benjamin Graham's master, he was in contact with one of the masters, confirmed that I was speaking with Maitreya at one of the Share International booths, and he was talking about the pollution, and I said, it's not too late. We can change that. And he looked at me and he said, you can, but I can't, because I'm the observer. And what he was saying was humanity has to make the changes. The masters, they can't come and wave a magic wand and make everything okay. They could, but they're not going to, because that's not their job. No, it's our job, right?
Yeah, what I meant when I talked about karma was a situation where someone is defenseless. For example, a person who's being shot at that moment, that person can't do anything to prevent themselves from being shot.
Beautiful.
That's what I'm talking about in those situations.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, but no, but I'm glad you brought it up, because it's good to clarify. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a quote here from Maitreya to describe how they see us. He says that I know that within men sits a divine being whose plan it is that love and justice should triumph. This being so, the end is assured. The end meaning the end result, where we're heading. And I find that very beautiful, because what he's saying is that's who you really are. And your plan, that is each of us, our plan is that love and justice should triumph. So each of us in each life, we're working towards that all the time.
It's about hope, isn't it, John?
Yeah, and I think that's our message. Sabina, I love the fact that you brought up that our civilization is collapsing. That explains the problem. It's collapsing because we're managing the planet incorrectly. And one of the reasons why the masters step forward now. So as our civilization collapses, we have the opportunity to make a new one. The good news is that the old one must go, and I believe that most people on the planet are starting to realize that. And at this time, as the old one is crumbling, the new one is coming through. We're not alone. There is help on the way, and that really is part of, I believe, our role today with this type of program, that there's a backstory, there's a plan, and that we're in good hands.
Indeed.
All right, and now we're going to go to meditation. Just briefly, we'll describe our source. Benjamin Creme, a Scottish artist and esotericist who was contacted telepathically by a Master of Wisdom in 1959, later by Maitreya, and he traveled the world giving public lectures, doing radio and TV interviews, talking about this, and he did all of it for free. He didn't take any money for this work. It was his form of service. The lectures and the interviews, everything that he said, this was all compiled into 17 books, translated into many languages. 4 of those are free, and there are links for the downloads for those books if you're interested. You can Google Benjamin Creme, and there are many videos that you can actually watch of him giving his talks. And I'll just go on here. The last slide we have here is all people are divine, just to reiterate that point. And now we're going to go to the meditation. First, we have some resources. These are links. They're also in the chat, places where you can get more information. Share International on YouTube for the videos of Benjamin Creme. Share-international.org is an extensive website with lots and lots of information.
Huge.
And yeah, it's enormous. And you can get the books that I was talking about, the 4 free ones, and the others at share-ecart.com. And there's also, these are the titles that are available, sorry. The Ageless Wisdom Teaching, The World Teacher for All Humanity, Transmission, a Meditation for the New Age, and The Awakening of Humanity. And there's a magazine that's published 10 times a year called Share International. You can read excerpts from it on the website, share-international.org, or you can even subscribe if you wish. And there is subscription information online at share-ecart.com.
This is a high quality, I'm sorry.
Oh, you go ahead.
May I just say something about Share International Magazine?
Absolutely.
This is a high quality product. Like we said, it has no advertising. So the editors of Share International Magazine, which Benjamin Creme started, are not beholden to anybody. It's high glossy quality paper, beautiful color photographs in every issue. It talks about the good things happening in the world, and it gives the latest update. There's always a question and answer by Benjamin Creme at the end. Beautiful questions about life, and that he answers from his information from one of the masters that he was in touch with on a regular basis. And also the latest news on Maitreya and the masters, and they're coming into the world. I can't think of the word.
Okay.
Their emergence into the everyday life of the world, the status of that. So it's a great magazine. It's very affordable, and there are 10 beautiful issues per year.
All right, and so we're going to do this meditation now. Please join us if you're interested. You don't have to believe in anything to do this meditation. It's very straightforward, very simple, and it works whether you believe in it or not. And it will also enhance any other spiritual practice you have. So there's no conflict between transmission meditation and anything else you might be doing. The essential way to start this meditation is with the great invocation. It is an invocation, as its title says. It's an ancient mantra. It was introduced to the modern world in 1945. It's used around the world in many languages, and it's used to begin transmission meditation, but it can also be used by itself as a practice on its own. And then we just go ahead to a few cautions. If you have a pacemaker or serious heart problems, you're advised not to do transmission meditation because the energies are strong. If you have emotional or psychological imbalances, also it's best not to do it. And if you're under the age of 12, your chakras haven't stabilized enough yet for doing this meditation because of the strength of the energies that will come through your chakras.
Yeah, these energies are real.
And then the last point before we start is simply that during the times of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic that we've been living through and still are living through, many groups are meeting virtually on Zoom or other platforms. We have links in the chat. Prior to that, people would meet together physically in a place, like in a bookstore, in a meeting hall, in someone's home, to do this meditation. Since it is a group meditation, it requires 3 people minimum to form a group. And I think that's basically it. I think we can go ahead and start. It's a very simple meditation. We will say the Great Invocation together. This is the Great Invocation. And then each of us sits and simply focuses on the Ajna center. And when our attention wanders, we use the mantra Om mentally to bring it back to that point. And that's the entire thing. It's not more complicated than that.
May I say one more thing about the transmission meditation?
Of course.
One of the reasons it's so powerful is because we're not downloading the energy from our soul. The energy is coming from the masters, and they're sending their energy through our chakras and then out into the world to help the world. So it's 2 things. You're serving the world, and with this powerful energy going through your chakras, you'll experience tremendous personal growth and maybe some healing. Thank you, Sabina.
Well, thanks, Dick. Absolutely. John, did you want to say anything before we start? And I was going to say, John, would you like to say the Great Invocation? The rest of us will mute out. We'll all say it individually where we're sitting, but we'll hear your voice saying it, and we'll say it along with you.
Great.
Did you want to say anything before you start?
I think meditation is really important. And if you want to make some change in your life, pick up a meditation. This is a powerful meditation. I've done other meditations, and this transmission meditation is the most powerful I've ever tried.
All right, well, that's a great recommendation. So we'll meditate for half an hour, and please join us, and we hope that you like it. Thanks for being here today. At the end of the meditation, we'll briefly come back to say goodbye. But just in case you don't last the half hour, I want to say we'll be back in a month, the 2nd Saturday in July, July 9th, for a program specifically about the Masters of Wisdom called Our Elder Brothers Return. And so do join us then if you're interested.
Sabina, will you time us, or do you want me to do that?
Usually John O'Neill does it, but you can go ahead if you have it handy. If you can do that, that'd be great.
All right, let's start.
Okay.
The Great Invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out. And may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. 25 minutes. 5 minutes to go. Sound the Om. Hold the attention on the Ajna center. 5 minutes to go. That's 30 minutes. Let's bring the meditation to a close. Give yourself a minute and then gently come back to us.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. If you can think of anyone who would benefit from knowing about this story, this information, please share this video with them. And as widely as you can. I'd like to thank our tech crew, John in Montgomery, Alabama, and Cielito in Seattle, Washington. And thank you to all of you for being here today. Thank you, Dick, and thank you, John, for joining us and giving us so much useful and powerful information.
Thank you for hosting, Sabina.
And excuse me, I look forward to seeing you again. We'll be back on July 9th with a show about the Masters of Wisdom titled Our Elder Brothers Return. So please join us then and have a great rest of the month of June and beginning of July. Goodbye, everybody.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you, Dick, and thank you, Sabina.
Bye-bye.